Stupidity is not a competition, unless you're a politician. The Daily Mojo.
Phil Bell, the Director of External Relations Affairs and Slap and Tickle over at freedomworks.org. Phil, how are you?
I'm good, and just an FYI, Slap and Tickle is only on Wednesdays and Fridays. All right, that's not
Right. I understand. I completely understand because too much of that and everything, it gets lost in the shuffle, so to speak. People just don't trust anything anywhere anymore about anything. It's really, I would say it's sad, but we saw this stuff coming from a mile away because all they do is lie. All right, so
wait, that's a good thing. Thankfully, at least it means people are starting to wake up and say, okay, I'm not going to just trust you blindly. I want information. I want some kind of proof about who you are and what you're trying to do. And so I think that going after NewsGuard, which was a disaster in the first place, kudos to Elon Musk for that.
What and NewsGuard, who started them? Do you know?
If I recall correctly, I thought it was several social media companies or something like that. And the idea was, well, we're going to do this as a way to, to combat disinformation. This was all of the, when our buzzword was fake news, their buzzword became disinformation. And that's the swamp that NewsGuard came from.
Right. I know. And most of the quote unquote fact check organizations, if you do a little investigation into where they get their funding, it's generally a left-wing either think tank or just a, what do you call it when people leave all their money behind? A trust?
Trust, yeah.
I guess.
Foundation, yeah.
So, it's always...
You got to go back to Bill Clinton, and not just after he was president. He would complain about Rush Limbaugh and say, well, there's no truth detector. And I think that's where Rush got the phrase truth detector from.
Right.
So they had been doing it for a long time. And if you notice, when did it start? The minute that the public started to question, even softly, the narrative they were being, sold by Peter Jennings and Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw, because that always favored the left.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's talk about polls that we're seeing right now. What's happening? And can these polls even be, I guess they can be trusted? How do we even know the polls are right anymore?
Well, I don't think this is my thing. I always distrust polling, always, because as Rush used to tell us, polling is used for the most part to shape public opinion, not measure it. It's only when you get close to the elections when it starts to really measure public opinion. So went over to my friend Catherine Schoonover's page and look her up online. Schoonover, she's better looking than I am, and she's a much better political analyst. But she shared some of this, so I want to give her a little shout out. The article that you put up there, where it talks about how you basically, once you add Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in, you end up seeing Trump and Biden get tied around 37% of the vote. So that's notable because of what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing, and that's that he is taking a lot of independent voters away from President Trump and taking them into his category, and that's putting Biden and Trump at more or less parity.
But Kennedy just came out, and he didn't exactly come out for reparations, but he kind of did. He used the word reparations in an interview, and as soon as that happened, didn't his support go? Pfft?
Well, it did, but you have to remember what's really happening here and why Robert F. Kennedy Jr. should be viewed as an actual threat, especially as an independent. See, President Trump and Bernie Sanders in 2016, and also to a much lesser extent in 2020, were viewed by a lot as outsiders. And so one of the things you've probably heard about recently that Freedomworks is doing is that we're starting to work more with independents. And the reason why is because so many more of the population have become independents. Some have gone there because the Democrat Party is not far left enough. The Republican Party is not conservative enough. But most importantly, neither party has taken the time recently to work toward the solutions that they talked about. And so the result has been a lot of people, one way or the other, are dissatisfied. And so therefore, they're looking for people who will embody something outside the dissatisfaction. So in many ways, going back to what we saw in 1992, when Ross Perot got in and helped ultimately elect Bill Clinton.
Right. And you brought up a great point. So many people are thinking now as independents because when you stop and think, what does it even mean to be a Republican now? What does it mean to be a Democrat? What does it mean to be a conservative? What does it mean to be does the word liberal even mean anything anymore? Or is it now just progressive? All of these labels have become so slipshod, and I don't know that they hold any meaning anymore.
You're right. So one of the things that we did in our polling in 2022 is we found out that a lot of folks, especially your millennials, and keep in mind now, the millennials are now in their late 30s, into their 40s, they're buying homes. They're not the people, largely anyway, who failed to launch after 07, 08. A lot of them do not embrace labels the way that their parents and grandparents did. And one of the best examples is ketchup. You know, I always buy the Heinz ketchup when I buy ketchup. Now, to be honest, I go to McDonald's and I just get a bunch of extras. That's how I buy ketchup. But for those who actually do, you know, a lot of people that are a little bit older, Gen X and so on, have embraced that label. Well, likewise, you are also seeing the continuation expansion of this long-term effort of seeing those party labels and also conservative versus liberal go away. You see people who express conservative views with, I'm not a conservative. So that's why it is important that now for those of us who are grassroots Americans to promote the principles over strictly the party labels. Now, I'm not saying you have to give up. I'm a proud Republican. I'm a proud conservative first. That's what I'm always going to be till the day I die, unless, of course, it, you know, all that goes woke, in which case we'd really have a really big problem. But we need to make sure the principles go out over the political names.
All right. So with the landscape the way it is right now, if Kennedy continues to be as popular as he is, and again, it's the fact that he is standing up against the machine, just like Trump did, that I think he becomes so popular. But he's pro-abortion, right? Pro-choice,
right?
Is that what it's called nowadays?
Yeah, he's a stock factory issue liberal who opposes the orthodoxy on vaccines. Now, I will say this. I believe that he is sincere in what he says. I believe he actually believes what he's saying. I don't think it's part of a cynical political plot. But for those who are out there who say, well, you know, listen, I'm really glad that he stood up against the vaccine and so forth. Don't let that blind you to the fact that he's been a major environmental lawyer. And look, here's the reality. Environmental lawyers, for the most part, aren't actually going out and saying, well, look, you know, here's something that's really bad. Let's fix it. He's been working with, I think it's Morgan & Morgan out of Florida, which is one of the biggest bunch of ambulance chasers and major donors to the Democrat Party that you'll find anywhere. So when you look at that, you say, hold on, he can't be part of that milieu, part of the machine, literally part of the machine, but then go out and rage against the machine. So to think that's the case is inaccurate. And to also, for the older folks out there who say, well, look, this is kind of taking me back a little bit to Camelot. Well, John F. Kennedy was quite a bit different than this. So I will give him props in that, like I said, I think he's a sincere individual. I don't think he's an evil person. I don't think he's necessarily, you know, the NWO. But at the same time, if he's able to implement most of what he's talking about, it is not going to make the country the, moderate center right place that most people are looking.
Right. What happens if we end up engulfed in World War III with Iran and with all that's happening over there in the Middle East? How does that change the landscape at all?
I think to a certain extent it does. Now, I'll give you an unpopular opinion. I think we're already enmeshed in World War III. So when you see us providing support to Ukraine, you see us providing support to Israel, we're already in it. When you see that China is now getting involved and they're sending, carrier battle cruiser fleet out, and we're sending a fleet out to counter them, we're already involved in World War III. The only thing you haven't seen is a declaration of war and some kind of a speech that gets memorialized iconically. So we're there. What I think the real question is, to what extent are voters going to be willing to say, look, we're not happy with the way things are going? And what's going to happen is you have to see how the prosecution of the war is going to go. Now, I don't think that Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin and the guy who replaced Mark Milley and so forth have at all cultivated a military that is capable of fighting on any of these fronts.
No.
And sadly, with some exception during the Trump administration, I don't think we've had very much of the ability to prosecute war for a very long time. In fact, Reagan and Grenada was the one exception. Now, when you add decades and decades and decades of rot, despite all the spending that has gone on with the military, despite all the defense contractors getting incredibly wealthy, I think you actually have a problem. And I do think voters will say, you know what? I don't like the way this war is going. I'm going to give somebody else a chance. And I think a lot of those votes will go over to President Trump.
All right. And then we have the oil situation, which, again, if, like you said, I mean, we probably are already in World War III with Iran. And how much oil do we get from them? Do you know?
I don't know what the amount is yet. I know that a lot of you have to remember, part of it is that oil is sold on a world market. And so therefore, it's not just strictly you're going to back your tanker up to their ports and start pumping out. So we probably do get more than will be reported because it'll be purchased through a second hand, third hand and so forth. And it's just wildly traded everywhere. But that is a factor that we need to look at. Oil prices have been rising steadily in recent weeks. You're seeing some of that being reflected at the gas pump. So that's important. But the other thing to think about is what that's going to impact beyond just at the pump. Because remember, part of the rise of your fuel, your food is coming from fuel. Mm-hmm. Part of the rise in all the other products that you purchase that we've been complaining about is coming from fuel. Joe Biden started by doing what? Restricting the amount that we could pump domestically. Then after he did that, he went, oh, shucks, wait a minute. We can't get it from Russia now. Let's go to Venezuela, a reprobate country. Let's go to Iran, a reprobate country. So, yeah, we have a problem, and it could be existential quickly.
And we don't have the reserves now that he could release because he already did that.
He already did. Right.
Yeah. So we're already low there. We're low on everything. We're low on oil. We're low on war stuff. We're low on troops. We're low just about everywhere. We're super low on money. What do we have in abundance right now? Anything?
Wokeness. And I mean,
okay.
I'm halfway being flippant, but it's true. That's pretty much all we have.
Right.
We have wokeness. We have entertainment. Which is kind of not
no, we
go
really
very
don't
far.
Because the SAG is still on strike, so we really don't have that, do we?
Yeah,
we don't
and
have,
that's another thing
we don't have
think
cars.
About. They're on strike. Yeah, autos are on strike. Yeah. Some of the Dallas casino workers decide to go on strike. Was it Dallas? Yeah, it's no Detroit.
No,
sorry,
Detroit.
Yeah. What it's incumbent upon everybody to do, and I'm going to do this because I'm one of those people, I eat out a lot because I work all the time. And, you look at my refrigerator, it's pretty embarrassing. But it's time to stock up. It's time to make sure, even if something catastrophic doesn't happen, at least the ability to go a few weeks by saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to eat at home, going to open up that canned food, have to be a little bit of a magician as a chef, and I'm a horrible cook, so don't come to my house. You're welcome to. It just won't be tasty.
Right.
But, be able to do that, even if it just lowers some of the costs that you face on a weekly basis, because those reserves, financial reserves, which should also build up, are going to be incredibly necessary, because we could be in for a long recession, which I believe we've already been in. It could get worse. And we could also have some shocks.
Man, they just, the hits keep coming. The hits. I can, by the way, just on a positive note, I can teach you how to make really good scrambled eggs if you like onions and mushrooms.
I can live with that. Actually, that's not bad.
Yeah, all right. So I can teach you. See, Ron hates mushrooms.
I don't like mushrooms, but I'll do onions and all that other stuff.
You're just a big weenie. If you don't like mushrooms, there's something wrong with you.
I guess.
Mushrooms are good for you. You have to be a fungi.
Except their consistency like Play-Doh. I don't do that. So.
Not if they're done right.
And
all
right,
so
pizza.
people.
I put mushrooms on my pizza.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
Oh man! And I thought we could. We're forming such a good bond and friendship. But now, yes, you can have mushrooms on pizza. They're really good.
Not on my pizza.
Brad, look on the bright side. We'll just order two pizzas. I have pepperoni on mine. You have mushrooms on yours. More for both of us.
There you go. I like that attitude. All right. So people need to head over to Freedomworks and do what?
Yep, sign up for our Freedom Teams. We're coming to Arizona soon. So we were just in Michigan last week. We're coming to Arizona. Particularly if you're in Arizona, sign up. We're having an event out there. Go to freedomworks.org, sign up there. And we're almost at the end of this year's tour, but we'll start ramping up again next year. And the important thing for next year is we're going to teach you everything you need to know to be involved in the election. Now, it's not advocating for any candidate or otherwise, because that would be illegal, and I know the IRS listens, but what we're going to teach you is the process, ballot harvesting, ballot chasing, so you understand how all that works, what's legal and what's illegal. Critically important.
The First Amendment lives here. Watch and listen at thedailymojo.com.